But it looks like, from the actor's perspective often, that all of the power is outside of you. It's with the casting director, it's with the director, it's with the network, it's with the studio, it's with the theater company. That's not true. It's not true. Because I posit, none of the things that you think hold power would exist. The theater, the movie, the network, the movie studio, the big agency, none of that would exist if people around the world weren't willing to pay money to feel along with an actor interpreting a script. And it wouldn't exist. And so at the end of the day, the actor and the creators hold the power.
Today, I'm joined by Richard Hicks, who's a casting director whose list of movies is endless. Gravity, Zero Dark 30, and he was also president of the Casting Society of America. Richard, welcome. Thank you for joining me. How you doing?
Thanks. Happy to be here. I'm good.
How's this is my sort of go-to question at the moment. How is lockdown treating you? What's life been like for you in the last few months?
It's mixed. It's very mixed. I mean, big picture, I'm okay. It reminds you that what you focus on is as important as what's happening. At least it's reminded me of that, because sometimes I feel sometimes I feel absolutely overwhelmed, and then sometimes or like, oh my God, I'm going to be in the poorhouse, and then sometimes I for a long time. So why are you freaking out? And trying to not miss what you're missing too much, so that you're not using up all of your energy to mourn some vision of the past. I've been between yoga and pot gummies. I'm like on point.
Perfect balance. It's interesting you mentioned mourning the past. I think that's something that a lot of people were feeling in those first few months. And I remember
absolutely
reading a lot of stuff and different people coming on and different, therapists and counselors and psychologists all throwing in their 2 cents. But there was this collective, weird global grief that everyone seemed to be going through, which is unique. I don't think there's been a time where globally everyone has been going through the same situation, but in a very different maybe way for everybody.
Yeah, well. I wonder. It might be like at the start of World War II or something. Like what, or but the kind of, but this is kind of like this lacks the energy you get from having a specific enemy to fight. Do you know what I mean? So like in a way, it might be more overwhelming, because it's like what's going to happen to us, as opposed to I'm gonna go fight that.
It's that human need for control. I think that's why everybody watched Contagion in the first week of lockdown. Right. They wanted to know what happened. It's like, I don't think Steven Soderbergh has the answers we need right now.
He wasn't prepared for this question.
Exactly. Cool. I mean, so one thing that I really want to just dive right into is I was watching an interview you did. I think it was Box Angeles, I think is what it was called, the show.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, but I found it intriguing. And it was something on the lines of a good actor, I'm air quoting because that's an ambiguous thing, won't look for your approval or validation. Loosely, that was the theme. That's something that has come up in many different guises with people I've been talking to on the show. But I'd be really keen to start maybe there and unpack that a bit more in terms of specifically what that means to you, and maybe see what tidbits we can give that might help actors that are tuning in.
Yeah, great. I think you hear, I'm not surprised to hear that you hear that a lot from casting people. Let's see. I'll say it a few ways and lead me to say it the most helpfully.
Sure.
But um, it looks like all of the power, as an actor, because I used to be an actor, and then I quit because I couldn't deal with not working, and it would frustrate me, and then I would be trying to get a job in a frustrated situation, from a frustrated place, and that's not very efficient. So I didn't get as much work as I thought I should have and could have. But it looks like, from the actor's perspective often, that all of the power is outside of you. It's with the casting director, it's with the director, it's with the network, it's with the studio, it's with the theater company. That's not true. It's not true. Because I posit, none of the things that you think hold power would exist. The theater, the movie, the network, the movie studio, the big agency, none of that would exist if people around the world weren't willing to pay money to feel along with an actor interpreting a script. And it wouldn't exist. And so at the end of the day, the actor and the creators hold the power. And in a way, and the trick is to not get fooled into some way of thinking that robs you of your power, and to stay focused on what you can control. You can control your willingness to look at the material and look at yourself and use your imagination and find ever more interesting, funny, heartbreaking, stupid, whatever the script is, versions of what you're gonna do. And that focus on that is the central power of it. And if you can clue out the noise and stay focused on that, that's when you're much more likely to get the job. You may not get the job even if you focus on it, but you probably won't get the job unless you're so gorgeous or so perfect for the part that it doesn't matter. If you're not focused on it, you're probably not going to get it. So I encourage actors to here's another thing I thought about as I was saying this. Often when actors do an audition for anybody, when actors do an audition, they come in, they do it awesome, and I say to them a version of like, oh, well, that was really good. That's like the audition version of it. Let's do this next take. Let's do the documentary version of it. Mm-hmm. And you're doing the same thing, but without the ultimate objective of, I'm going to use the choices that I'm giving you to show that I should get this job. And the character in the moment doesn't give a shit about getting the job. And that kind of that hunger in the actor is like a screen, a filter that inhibits us from seeing the fully revealed version and willingness to be observed version of the character. And you may not get the job if you're willing, if you're that revealed, but doing this doesn't
not going to help either.
No, it's not going to help and makes him less likely.
And you're going to have less of a good time. You're not going to enjoy the audition if you're clenched and you're sort of nervous.
And like a lot of actors mistake the effort for the vulnerability or whatever. They think, when I was an actor, I used to think it would only happen if it was really hard and it was really something to power through or something, or you get in, or because that's a drama that you can control, you throw yourself into this drama of, I want this job. And instead of the heartbreak of, I really did my best and I didn't get it. And that's a really a hard thing for an actor to live with throughout his career. You have to really love it, really want it, really go for it, really, do your best, and then let it go. And that ability to completely invest and then completely let it go, because if you don't let it go, it sits like a silt, and sits, and kind of builds up over the course of time, I find. And in kind of general ways, I think actors sometimes fall into two traps around it. They get like they want to try harder. They want to try harder because that'll get it, or they do this thing where they're like, it's a numbers game. I don't know. I'm just gonna do it. I'm not gonna try. I'm not gonna try hard because it's unlikely. I mean, come on. And that cynicism about it, I think, also is a defense against the feeling of how shitty it feels to really want it and not get it. And so that undermines the actor's ability. And then all of those kind of behaviors play into the pretend that I don't have any power in this. Yeah, that may be true sometimes, but it's so often not true. Because I just finished some callbacks for something, and we're, and I'm looking at these people on Zoom, and the people who are willing to reveal their version of the character for us are respected in a way that people who are chasing the tail of getting the job, no, it's not. It probably won't get you the job.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's unveiling that version that's your version of the character, which also I think sometimes actors, we might mistake that as meaning some kind of, again, effort ordained on top of the script that's inorganic, as opposed to actually getting out of your own goddamn way. But these, I think, are things that people hear a lot. And so now I put myself in my actor shoes, and I think maybe other people, and go, I'm with you, Richard, and I've heard it a million times. And it makes so much sense logically. I don't think
intellectually it does.
No one's walking in going, I want your approval. I don't think that's on a much more subversive level. And for me, in my exploration in the past few years, the more I think about it, the more I look at it as a bigger life thing than just a
it kind of is
acting thing. And I don't know what the rhyme or reason is as to how you get to that place where you feel comfortable just enjoying the audition and that's it, because I don't think there's a formula to it. Or
no,
maybe
I think one way to get comfortable is, what about what I'm going to do is more important than looking good? Or what about what I'm going to do in this audition is, what do I have to say? Why do I give a shit? Why does this mean something to me, except I want the money that comes from the job, or the fame that comes from the job? I want it because this reminds me of my time in first grade, and blah, 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 blah. Or, oh my God, I've always wanted to be blah, blah, blah. And you hook into something that actually means something. And whether it could be imagined, what is it like to lose the person you love the most, even if you haven't? And you can imagine a version of that, and be willing to drop into that. When I was an actor, I went to RADA in London, and I was the thing which was such a gift for me, which continues to serve me now, is I was able to look in the eyes of people who were doing great acting and kind of feel what that was. And there is an ability to just drop into it and then come out of it that I only got through intense effort, and then I was willing to drop into it. I could have done it much more often than I did, so some actors are gifted and are able to do that kind of without thinking about it. It is possible to develop the habit of that, and to the degree that you can, become not only a workman-like actor, but to do your best to connect with what moves you, because it's all about what moves us, because that's the only thing we're really communicating in our pretends here. And we're only really communicating about like, oh, and why audiences love it, because they're moved. You know, they're turned on, or we crack them up, or, you know, whatever the feeling is. It doesn't have to be so arty.
Well, they have the experiences in their own lives too, right? Like they just have the veil. Everybody has a veil in their personal life for self-preservation. And I think the actor or the artist's job is to be able to drop that veil enough to let those people watching at home go, oh, that's actually what I think and feel deep down. I just wouldn't say it. And there's that relatability and that humanity.
But, or oh my God, he's so funny when he does that, because he really gets the this of it. Or
exactly. And I think a lot of that for the actor, again, maybe gets on tap, not just from classes, which are essential, and not just from working the industry, but I go again back to that point of having a life that's rich and gives you experiences of life beyond just I'm on the hamster wheel of going after a job and a career. Not that that isn't important, but you gotta fuel the train a little bit. Right?
Yes, you do.
You spoke a bit about Zoom there. You kind of dropped it in quietly, but you mentioned about callbacks on Zoom. How have you been finding that as a process? And
it's mixed. It's better. It's way better than nothing. And it's not. It's like it's almost as good, particularly for film and television, because like really what at the end of the day, what you're going to see is what's on the camera, and so and you can tell a lot from the way the person is doing the audition. I don't know. Ask me a question about it. Like, is it like?
Well,
like,
I mean, I guess it's different in some ways as well to a self-tape, right? Although it's a similar medium, being over, the remote aspect is the same, but a self-tape, it's a bit more controlled, self-contained. The actor does everything and sets it up. But again, it's slightly different parameters.
There's different ways to minimize your weaknesses on a self-tape and maximize your strengths on a self-tape. There are things which are good to do in a callback with the director. The ability to kind of produce an instantaneous result based on a note is something that helps somebody in a callback in a way that it wouldn't really in a self-tape.
Do you feel like this? I mean, obviously, it's the new kind of staple, definitely for now. Zoom
for the next year, I would say, 8 months or whatever it is. It's good, for a long. I don't know what theater actors are going to do. I don't know when we're going to be able to gather in groups of 1,000 and watch something close to each other. I think that's a year away.
Easily, and at reduced capacities, no doubt, as well. Which is then, well, how are they going to turn a profit, and how are they going to manage those venues? I mean, I know here in the UK, a lot of venues have closed down, long-standing theaters in the regions, but even London, some of them are looking at how can they sustain this if they're going to be shut for a lot longer. And whilst it's great that they might opening at 30% capacity is better than nothing, it's still going to be a big challenge. And
it'll be a big challenge.
Which is interesting, because that's a good staple place for actors to go and create when you're not necessarily getting those auditions. You can.
I would say to you, when you're not getting your audition, you can do a Zoom scene with your friends. You can in this modern internet world, you can generate in a way you never could 10 years ago. So and that's on you, on the actor. Mm-hmm. That's, you know what I mean? So COVID's overwhelming, but don't use that as an excuse to go to
binge Netflix
and not do anything. It's a balancing act, but at the end of the day, like if I see a fantastic weirdo web series or something, I remember the people who were in it because it was cool.
Yeah, that's interesting because I read an article, I think it's going back 3-4 years of yours on Backstage. And I think one of the final points that they put in there is, apparently you were quoted as saying you'd much rather people.
Oh, here, just 1 sec. I'm going to decline that. I don't know how to do that, undo that, but whatever.
I was just saying in this article on Backstage, it kind of rounded off the end saying that you'd apparently said to them, you much prefer people to reach out with some work, a link to a short or a web series or something.
Yeah, I used to do I used to do more general auditions, or generals meaning chats with people, and that you get something from a chat, you definitely do. But at the end of the day, it's really who are you as an actor? Or who are you as an actor? And you can tell with no matter what the person is doing, maybe because I've been doing it for a long time, but I think it's I thought I could 20 years ago. You can tell pretty quickly like what somebody's general vibe is. Like, do they lead with their sexuality, their emotion, their charm, their humor, their anger, their disdain? What's
the essence of the person, kind of.
Yeah, the basic matrix of temperatures.
Yeah.
And each person has a different one. That's the kind of like a default for them. And you kind of, when I'm watching something, I do my best to kind of look how they fit or don't fit in the role, and then also try to remember, and I forget a lot nowadays, but I try to remember, oh, okay, so that's that person's general feeling vibe. And so you catalog both of those so that if they're not right for this part, maybe, actually they'd be righter for that part.
Yeah, it's a puzzle, isn't it? I mean, you're piecing that all together with whatever project you're working on and trying to find that symbiosis of all those different people to make a tapestry that isn't going to be jarring to the audience, that feels real.
Yeah, right. And does its best to serve the thing you're casting, and to the extent that you can, emphasize or de-emphasize or support different aspects of the story. Like, like today's Zoom auditions, we have one actor who's kind of naturally funny and wants to go for a joke and is clever, very clever, and yet vulnerable. And then we have somebody who's very earnest, and so we're probably going to call them both back, because with the other person who's going to be in the lead of the movie, like what version is going to be better with that, and so yeah.
That's interesting to hear as well, just for actors that are going to tune in, because it's basically just an experiment. Once you're getting to that stage, you're playing and you're just testing, and if both are going to work, clearly both will work in a different way. That's the
There's
thing.
tons of good people, then you're like, we're very lucky because we get to pick, we as the casting people or the director or whatever, we get to pick which flavor of awesome helps us the most.
Is that one of the better, most enjoyable parts of the process over all the years for you, getting that kind of sort of creative input to mold?
I like it when people on my side listen to me.
Sure.
But I used to do a little bit of the actor that I'm telling you is a useful version. I used to really try to want to be impressive and to try and want to seem like a hip, cool, smart, good casting person.
In the know.
I know everything, and I realized about 10 years ago that desire to look impressive was taking precedent over doing a good job. And so I'd spend a lot of time and energy looking good, but then nervous all the time behind it. And what makes me not nervous is just doing the work so that I can, and not caring so much about what they think of me, but like, what am I committed to? I'm committed to finding this version of the character, or trying to help some buddy who's got 80% of what they seem to be looking for, get them to 90 so that they can get the job, or, you know, whatever.
How did you manage to make that shift? I mean, obviously becoming conscious of it is the first step, but then I'm assuming that it was maybe something that happened over time. Did you have
You
to
mean
keep?
the shift of trying not to look like
Yeah,
you?
exactly. That shift of sort of realizing that and then going, well, how do I let that go?
Let's see. I think.
Because it's not necessarily an implicit thing that you maybe were doing logically all the time, I would imagine. Or maybe
No, I think I just realized one day I was doing what I was telling actors not to do.
Right.
In a way, you know what I mean? Like, oh, well then fuck me. And I was so anxious most of the time. Like I was doing like a movie for Miramax back in the day, and like I would wake up and I would have to I would hit my chest because I was so anxious, and it would calm me down, and then I'd get on the phone and be, you know, pretendy and like and like
it's that false pretense
stupid.
of, yeah, whenever people ask, how you doing? Everyone's fantastic, awesome, unicorns are shooting out of my butt. And it's like, well, that's fake. Like, it's not, nothing can be that amazing 24/7 unless you're a psycho. But we feel like we have to put on that veneer. What I like about this, though, is it's just the best thing about all these chats I've been having is we all then get to see that casting people take away the casting. It's your people, like, obviously. But we're just seeing the human. You are just saying you've done the same thing you told actors not to do, which is totally normal because you're a regular guy who has a great job, but you're not a gatekeeper to Narnia, which is how I think people perceive casting sometimes.
Because it allows them to not feel powerful in that situation, and then when they don't get the job, it's not them, it's the Narnia people who didn't let them in, and that's the way you get to
bitter town.
Bitter town, and like, you know, hold on to your fantasy that you would have gotten it if the gatekeepers didn't. No, probably, you know, you may or may not have, or no, you didn't get it because you didn't put yourself out there. I would say, because you didn't really go for it. Whether you go for it, may not get it, but like if you don't go for it, then in some way it's on you.
And if you do go for it, at least you'll feel better about the fact that you left an audition.
So much easier to put it away if you feel like I've had jobs where I've really, really, really tried and didn't get it. But then I would send one more email saying, I really think I would love you to hire me because of blah, blah, blah. And then once I did that, I was like, all right, I did everything I can out of my hands. If you're going to like me or not.
Yeah. And again, it's that thing of everybody, I think, conceptually can totally get that. It's something just has to happen to the individual to let them organically fall into that space.
Yeah, right. But you can keep practicing it because it'll help you, and you'll fail sometimes, but if you practice it, you'll get better at it.
And you know, one of the silver linings of a COVID global pandemic lockdown like we've gone through is perspective. For all of us.
If you're up for looking at it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the side of it, wasn't it? Whether people were avoiding all the feelings by binging and completing Netflix and not dealing with whatever
a little bit, yes, and hiding, right? Or I mean, like in America, we've got a whole political party that is avoiding
no, what are you talking about?
Change perspective based on fact, based on the new reality.
What are you talking about? It's nuts. To be fair, in the UK, it's not that much better. To be fair, I know.
Well, there's a lot of people who would rather hold on to some belief than admit that what they're doing is wrong, or admit that they need to, that it would be helpful for the greater good to change their perspective.
Well, the greater good for the masses is one thing. The greater good for them as individuals is, I think, where the tunnel vision is. And it's that old adage of, I mean, it's this theme of control that seems to be coming up in this chat. We're talking about it for actors, but it's the same notion. They're clinging on to control for dear life and using all these different tools and tactics to cop out.
To keep in control. Yeah. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're all going to die, and we have no control. We don't. So what are we going to do with that knowledge?
It's interesting how you see that, and you see it happen when people are getting into that stage. My dad, who I had to look after last year, when he passed away in November, was I mean, I think I'd be fair to say a controlling person, and he would admit it, and we would butt heads over all kinds of stuff. But the last 6 months was him having to come to terms with the fact that he was slowly losing control, and it was the one thing that he feared the most. But then the last 3 months, when he had to get over hating me for being the one that was taking some of the control to help him as the kid, it's that really weird transfer of power. I get that. Those last few months was more honest and less out of ego than he'd ever been in his life, and able to communicate in that way, like as in literally say, I have no ego about it now, and it was legitimate. You can sense it. I found that amazing that he got to have that, because it's better than to never have it. I also found it at the same time kind of bittersweet and sad, because why does it have to take something like that to get to that stage? To have that ability to do that. And there's got to be a way for us to be able to tap into that before, you know, awful things like that, or a pandemic, as an example, happen. But I think that's, you know, that's where it's at. It's that perspective that makes the acting game just be what then you look at it as a game. It's just a game. It's just a game.
It's a great fun.
It's a great game.
You live your life. It's a great game.
It's a great game. Awesome. I feel like I've lowered the tone. So
oh no, we're very upscale here, I think.
To give you a little bit of a break from me, I do see that someone's in the waiting room, so I'm going to bring Anna and give her five minutes, 10 minutes with you, and let her have a bit of a chat. I think Anna is in LA as well, but let's triple check with her when she comes on.
Okay.
Hey, Anna. Hello.
Hey.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
Hey.
Very well. Lovely to meet you both.
Likewise. You're in LA, aren't you? I haven't made that up.
I'm currently in Portland, but yes, based in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
It doesn't matter where we are anymore. So
exactly.
It kind of doesn't.
We're in Zoom world, whatever that means. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you just have a chat with Richard and ask whatever you want to ask. It's your time. You guys do your thing.
Oh, fantastic. Very nice. Very nice. So have you guys had a previous discussion already, or just we get to chat?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like an interview. Like I did like a little chat with him about casting in general terms, and then part of his thing is inviting.
Right, exactly. I get to come and talk to you about it. So sorry.
Yes.
You have to go and you have to watch your show, yeah? You don't need my code because you have Papa's iPad. Oh my gosh, sorry.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Awesome.
They're over here, but we'll worry about that afterwards. Okay. Okay, you're doing great. Thank God for Disney Plus, you guys. I mean, all of these things. So here's where I've sort of become fascinated. I've coached actors for a few years now. And one of the things that I realized was getting in so many people's way was just a genuine sense of confidence, right? Whether or not they actually believed in the work that they were putting across. They could be doing very good work, but if they weren't selling that they believed that the work was as good as it was. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think we're in such an interesting, we're somewhere on the spectrum, depending on the project, right, between art and commerce.
Yeah, indeed.
And I think that since half of the people buying our product as actors live on the commerce side of things, I genuinely believe that if you're not selling with confidence the product that you have, that it's much more difficult to book the job. Do you agree?
Yes. Like I would phrase it a little differently.
Great.
The confidence, I think, comes from the feeling that you are really connected emotionally to what you're going to do, and why anybody should give a shit, and why it matters to you, independent of getting the job. And
yes.
that independence from getting the job is something we were just talking about on the podcast. That feeling of I'm going to let you observe me, and you can give me the job or not, but I love this because of this, means you're not in a submissive position to what you perceive to be as the power center. And
yes.
And so it's not, for me, it's not exactly confidence in what you're selling. It's like gut check-in surety that what you're gonna talk about, if you will, what you're gonna do means more than getting the energy associated with needing the job.
Right. Yes. No, that makes perfect sense. And I think that's almost the thing that I'm talking about, that presence, right? That you're talking about, I think is so often lacking because people are trying to deliver a product as opposed to
for me, it's not. I often say, okay, that was good. That was the audition version of the scene. Now let's do the documentary version of the scene. So, and when you do that, it takes away the pressure of trying to get the job out of the choices you're presenting, and allows in a way that the camera loves, in a way no other medium does, for it to kind of come into the person and to observe. And so the actor who can allow him or herself to be observed, fully emotionally present to what we're talking about. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be fucking funny, or it could be stupid, or it could be silly, or whatever it is. Allow yourself to be observed. Keeps the focus on what's most likely to get the actor the job. Because when you begin to feel powerless in the equation, that tells me that you don't have enough to say about what you're doing to trump your obvious need to get the job.
Yes.
And you may not get it if you put yourself all the way out there, but you're much more likely to get it if you do. If you put yourself out there and think about what moves you rather than how bad you need this damn job.
Right. It feels like,
you can use that to focus you. You can use it to focus you, but at the end of the day, you got to let that shit go, because as I was saying to him, it's kind of like a screen between when we see a movie or TV audition, despite what we pretend to say, I think, we hope that we're going to watch like a version of the movie that we could just put on the screen.
Yes.
Kind of, that's even better than we can imagine. But they have power and I don't, or oh God, I really want this, is serves as kind of a screen, so we can't fully see what you're going to be when you are the most revealed version of it. And you may not get the job if you don't do this, but I can almost guarantee you that you're less likely to get it if you do this, if you will.
It's almost like what you're saying is the most important thing that we're selling. And I think this is true from an artistic standpoint. And the thing that I've always seen actors miss the most is that we're actually selling our own vulnerability, right?
Yes.
We have to be.
Who are we in the matrix of, who are we and what is our perspective in this, as human beings? It's kind of vulnerability, but that doesn't. But I want to not make it seem so arty-farty, delicately vulnerable. No, it definitely could be that. But the vulnerability I'm talking about is the willingness to find something important and allow yourself to be observed, addressing it.
Right, and with your full opinions intact, and with your
full opinions, or your pretend, or your imagination, or your imagined opinions, or your commitment to
your characters.
Commit to how funny you think this fucking moment is, or whatever it is, you know. Yeah, all of that is more important than you needing the job. To me.
Yes.
To me, although it's hard to think that when you need to pay the rent.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, it's
But
hard.
I think
It's hard.
it's hard, and I think that those of us who went into this business thinking that it was going to pay their rent, you know, we all got pretty surprised pretty quickly by that. But I do feel
Some
like
people
that
do
was
it. Some people do it though, and I feel like that. But I'm trying to get them to. But what I find in the people who do it are the people who are so gifted they can just drop in and do it, or the
yes.
people who have a consistent habit of willing themselves there.
Yes, and it's such an important distinction that, you know, that actual presence in the moment. I think that's exactly the thing that I find missing the most often. Can you talk a little bit about in the projects that you've worked on, you know, when art seems to weigh more and when commerce seems to weigh more? I mean, especially from the perspective of an actor, is there a way to sort of think about what our responsibility is to both of those pieces? Because I think that we bring the work and we bring the confidence and we bring, you know, the vulnerability and presence and all of that. But I think that we also have to have an awareness of the kind of project that we are in. And
yes, I think that's true. Like, you know, doing something for, I don't know, I'm only old 1990s examples, you know, doing Red Shoe Diaries versus, or, you know, doing something a little schlocky but hopes to be popular as opposed to wants to be good is a different thing. Ask me another question about that. I'm not sure I know what to answer.
I think that people end up finding themselves a category. And I think that a lot of actors think we should be able to do it all instead of honing our skills in either the place that fits us the best or
I used to be an actor, and I used to think that comedy was easy for me because I was clever and quick. But I associated good acting with something that was hard and dramatic. And so I would really push myself to do hard and dramatic things that I wasn't better than most people at that. So I had to, now once I stopped acting, I was able to admit it. But when I was acting, I didn't work as much as I could have because of that.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think, is it simply just the experience of a million auditions and taking the classes and realizing what you're good at? I think it's hard for some people to accept that thing, you know, in the middle of the process, knowing we want to pay our rent, knowing we want to be able to get to the next job. Do you have any advice for people to help them figure out what it is, or narrow those things down for themselves? Or just
I would say, you know, those moments where you really admit shit to yourself, that you kind of have to do a lot as an actor. And if you can't, really get out, because there are people who are willing or able to or gifted enough to. You could carve out something, you know, you can carve out something. But if you're asking me how can you really get more there, I would say, you know, that thing where you're like, oh, I don't want to admit it, but I think this is true. It probably is true. So if it is true, then what? So like, oh yeah, I'm really funnier than most people, but I'm not. I'll never beat Ray Fiennes at dramatic acting. I won't. So if I admitted that to myself when I went to RADA, I'd be in a different place. I'd be in a different place.
Is it understanding how other people see you as well? Because it's one thing.
Yes.
How you see
you got to be willing to take that in and fold it into what you think about yourself. Right. Like I had in my head that I was less quirky than I that I kind of am, you know? And so I tried to will myself to be somebody I wasn't, which might fool people once or twice, but you get a career's worth of jobs off of that level of honesty.
You really have to bring an absolute level of yourself to everything. I think that's also hard for those of us
yourself,
who went through big...
and it doesn't need to be in a therapeutic way, although that is one of the, it doesn't have to be. It could be in a beautifully imagined way too, but yourself, you're using all of your gifts as a person to step into this imagined life, so because I don't want to limit it to things that already speak to you in your life, although that's often where the job gets won.
Yes.
So, but it is possible to have something that isn't in your life, that is so deeply imagined that you step into it as if, but that ability to step in, or that perspective that you get from once you're in, is limited by your perspective as an artist. So, being willing to expand, being willing to be as rigorously honest so as to accept all of humanity and what you're doing, will probably get you further than I really want to be tall and handsome and 6'2" and straight. It
Don't we all?
Didn't work.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And I think that idea that I always like the idea that we're actually amateur psychologists, right? With no obligation to fix humanity, right? We're just observing it. We're actually
that's kind of
understanding
true. Yeah.
how it works.
Yes, and the more nuance you can be in your delivery of that psychology
interpretation,
it will get you further as an actor.
Yeah. Well, as a studied former actor, do you find that the actors that you work with who have had formal training, who have been through programs, especially, in Los Angeles in the film and television world, do you find their work more particular, more specific, more, talk a little bit maybe to just, yeah.
Let's see, as a rule, yes, but what am I trying to say? As a rule, yes, but when I'm looking for that part, unlike some people, like I don't do like Riverdale and stuff. So I'm more about like am I watching the real of it? Do I feel like I'm privy to something that I'm allowed to see, that's really kind of, that I'm not meant to see, that's private because it's so good, as opposed to something presented for my pleasure.
Right.
What actors who have been to schools can achieve is often a technical facility, so that when their imagination takes them somewhere, they can follow through with the change in dialect, or the change in, or the historical perspective, or the knowledge of how George Burns used to do a joke, or whatever it is. Sometimes actors use that as the end goal, and they present something that is intellectually appropriate, but not really what we're talking about, because it's the intellectualization of acting at drama school is a danger too, because it's as basic as being truthful. I cast a movie about 5 years ago with Jeffrey Wright in the lead for HBO, or it ended up in HBO. Jeffrey Wright, set in a maximum security, in a prison, and we used like 5 professional actors, and the rest were prisoners in this maximum security prison. And the lead opposite him was a guy who was in for life, who was as good an actor as anybody, or most people, better actor than almost everybody I see, and as good an actor as anybody who got the lead. Cause he did what actors do. he listened really hard, and he the imagined thing that was the story he really felt and really lived in that. And so like he went toe to toe with him, and it reminds you it's everywhere, you know, like I sometimes do real people casting, and while their range isn't as great, while they can't pretend as widely, if you can get them to just be them, that what they know as their version of themselves, and just be allow themselves to be observed, that's about 60% of it, and gets them the two-line part, because what they have in their real life is more complicated and more real than what some actor who went to drama school is able to imagine about that same life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's all the more case for then that thing of actors having an enriched life beyond just I only act and that's my sole 100% focus every single waking minute of the day.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing to inform your artistry with. And as you get older, you kind of look back and go, well, what have I been doing except waiting for an audition? I've not even tried to make my own work, or I've just been, you know, on set, and that's great, but I've not traveled. I've not experienced different jobs. I've not been in different situations. And that's going to feed into.
I haven't been to this thing, which, I haven't seen this play, which cracked me up and reminded me that stupidity is fantastic, and blah, 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 whatever it is.
In fact, some of the most fun. Yeah, I love that about the imagination too, because I do think some people are inherently never shut it off after childhood. And some people it's shut down so hard that trying to open that back up is trying to convince them that it's okay to live in a place of fantasy is difficult, even when they're trying to be actors, and you often get these presentational performances because the imagination is just plain shut down. And I love the, you know,
sometimes like actors who are only actors develop the habits that are actorly and imply a trope that isn't real. It's just not real. So like it might work for the cop on a CW show, but it's not going to work much beyond that. So is that what you want to do? Is that what you want to give us? You know. And
I've even seen, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but they seem to change too, you know, kind of rapidly. We go on cycles of this is what's popular on TV. I mean, if you look at the shows in the 80s, the style of acting is completely different.
Totally.
So if you were doing that trope, unless you evolved with the time. Being a person is always going to be the thing that's going to actually get you through.
Probably. And it'll be a more satisfying way to go through the limited life that we all have.
Yeah, right. So did you end up in the world of, maybe I'll call it like observational, you know, comedy and thing? Well, maybe you should help me define, I guess, where you ended up in your career. Was that a choice, or how much of that was just habit, and where you know, did you find yourself there the same way an actor finds themselves in a career?
I think I don't know. I think, no, I don't. I think it's a little bit. It's a mix. Like I kind of, when I fell into casting, I left acting and started as an assistant for the woman who did Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. So I was in the middle of like the indie scene at the moment. And I was like, oh wow, and then because I'm funny, like I was in the middle of like, I did Curb Your Enthusiasm for the first few years and stuff, and I was kind of like on a comedy track, which is a little bit because of me, I think, and a little because. Well, this is, I'm not sure. Yeah, a little bit because I think the slot for gay people in Hollywood is, oh, they're funny. And so I was doing that, but my heart is with little movies that are kind of arty and observational and stuff like that. So I tried to tried to gather stuff around me that did that. You know what I mean? So like, I like cast for the Sundance Directors Lab, which pays no money, but is so satisfying and kind of fuels me through the BS of needing to get a job and having to do a commercial. So, or whatever. So, or for me, no slam on commercials. Sometimes they're better than many things I've done.
It's easier. They're shorter.
They're shorter. Yeah. They're upbeat often. But yeah, but my point was like use as your guiding principle, what do I love the most, and what incomplete but possible way can I gather stuff like that around me so that I can feed myself, because you have to be able to feed yourself, because it takes so much energy to go try to get a job and make a living and not fuck it up and that you need something that feeds you through all of that. And that could be your play reading group, or it could be your improv class, or it could be whatever, all with the goal of how do I feed myself so that I have something awesome to say at the next audition.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome.
I guess finally, because I'm sure you have other things to do today, in our weird new world of all being stuck at home and doing all of our auditions either by ourselves completely or on Zoom, what's best advice for actors? How can we do our best and put our best foot forward? Do you believe in I don't even know how we're making our own content right now unless we're doing it in quarantine style, but
yes,
have you seen anything magical?
Or you're doing it outside, or you're doing it, 6 feet away from you outside is pretty safe. Let's see. One thing that I always say is, if you have 2 takes and one's good in the beginning and one's good at the end, lead with the one that's good in the beginning, because if it's not good in the beginning, I turn it off and I don't care, because I assume it'll be like that for the rest.
Within reason, perhaps?
Oh, I see. No, I would say don't send me more than a couple.
Right.
Or, don't send me more than a couple, because I'll, in my superiority, think I've gotten a vibe by then. But you can do 20 and I only see the 2, and you don't have to, I don't have to know that you suck most of the time and you're awesome sometimes. You'll get that one job.
We have to be careful letting actors know that they can just throw their work out there as broadly. No, keep it to the ones you think are.
Yes, yeah, because you get one chance to make a first impression. That's a little not true, because what happens with, like, there's people I think I see for the first time and think they're awesome. Mm-hmm. There's people I think I see for the first time and can't really, and they're kind of medium, or they suck. And the ones who are medium and suck, I find as I get older, I remember less. So sometimes I'll see the same person a few times before I get it. But once I've got it, I don't want to see that person, because I've determined that they're not my kind of actor, unless they're so right for the part that's so specifically appropriate for them, it trumps it, or the vibe of the movie is like, or it's like, somebody on Portlandia, for example, like one of those smaller parts who's just weird and fantastic and, essentially not a good actor, but an amazing weirdo presence.
Those are just our neighbors up here.
Exactly.
They're just really hanging out. That's the problem. Yeah,
I hear you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to have gotten a chance to speak with you today, Hannah.
It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Anna.
Anytime. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Okay, bye.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye. It was interesting, I think, talking about the whole idea of you might not have an actor that's one that you're a fan of.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting point to touch on quickly before I bring in Chris, just because an actor wants, like we were talking at the top, to impress everybody sometimes. And that's a really sort of bad fallacy to get into. But there's so many casting offices. It's all so subjective. You can't have fans that, everywhere. Maybe you're only going to have like half a dozen super fans. I mean, and that's enough. And it's knowing who they are. There's going away from acting. There's a business entrepreneur who wrote a thing years ago called 1,000 Fans. And he basically in this sort of article talks about how you don't need 1 million fans or 100,000. You need that small group of true loyal diehards that love your work and love what you do, that'll go to bat for you no matter what. And I think it's the same in as an actor.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right.
Like, don't spaghetti sling to every casting office, because they might not vibe with you. They might not cast the stuff you're right for.
Right. And you're wasting time dealing with somebody who's not that interested in you.
And that has to be okay.
That has to be okay. Yeah, it's like trying to date somebody who's not really that interested.
Let's caveat that they're not interested in your work, maybe, or just your vibe as a performer. They don't know you as a just for any actors.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. Because I don't really know the person. I have a supposition, but I really only know what they're willing to show me.
Exactly. Awesome. Cool. Let me bring in Chris for a few minutes to have a chat, and then once he's done, we'll wrap it up there, because poor Chris, I think, has been waiting for a little while in the waiting room.
Okay.
Chris.
Hey.
I do it. You're on your phone and everything. Like, when is he gonna bring me in?
Sorry.
How you doing?
Hey there. How you guys doing? You all right?
Good.
We're good.
Nice
collectively and individually.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you?
Wonderfully strange coming into your full ongoing conversation. I hope you guys have been talking well behind my back. It's good. I'm good. It's a bit rainy here right now, but it's apart from that, it's actually really, really been a good day. Yeah.
Where are you?
Oh, in London.
Oh, great.
Yeah, South London. So I live in Balham, which is kind of it's a nice little area. There's a lot of parks around and stuff, which has been great for lockdown, you know.
Yes, indeed.
And where are you, Richard?
LA.
LA is what I figured.
Yeah. But I used to live in London back in the 80s.
All right.
So yes, I know Balham.
So what have you two been talking about?
All kinds of stuff.
Actor stuff.
Actor stuff. All the insecurities we have, the mindset game, the not wanting to control everything, and the need to let go.
Trying to give people tips from this side that are like, bigger than, that help you keep hold of the power that you have as an actor.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know. I always found that, casting directors, they're your allies. When they call you in, they call you in because they think you're awesome. They want you to get the job.
We want somebody to get the job.
Exactly. So it's like, they're not going to waste their own time calling you in. So I've never had a fear of the casting process per se. It's like, and I think that's really helped me personally as an actor. I think in a weird way, the industry, there's so much that actors don't see because they're never involved in the actual processes of casting and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I used to be a reader at auditions, and that found really helpful.
I read a lot, and I actually also worked for a couple of casting offices, so I got to see behind the scenes, and that was, it was an eye-opener. It really was. It was great.
Yeah, you see how 80% of the time people screw themselves as opposed to us just doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they come in powerless, or they come in without a point of view, or they come in desperate, or they come in the many ways they can that doesn't help them.
Yeah, exactly. I guess there's that whole actor thing about it being about relaxation and, just dropping your shoulders going in. And
yeah, we were talking about that kind of before.
So I don't know. I suppose from my perspective also, I'm a character actor. I'm kind of a big guy, and I'm half American, half German. I speak both those languages. So I got a lot of niche casting going on. And
How do you find that in London? Like, you know, I remember when I tried to be an actor in London, I wanted to go so deep into being English, which you kind of have to go one way or the other. But once they find out you're not native, often you are perceived as somebody who couldn't be native. So you have to really kind of prove them wrong or lean into what's unique about American German person in London.
Absolutely. And actually, I mean, I think the casting directors that know me well, I think what I've kind of marketed with them is that I'm a changing actor. I'm a transforming actor. So I think there's, I have a theory that there's two types of actors. There's people who play themselves in a really interesting way, and then there's people who really do transform. And so I do play, you know, everything from whatever German, you know, from Nazis and officers and stuff like that, to, you know, to the fat funny guy, to businessmen in suits and stuff like that. And I think the good casting directors understand that, you know, not to pigeonhole me in that. They call me in often for wild card casting.
Yes.
They're like, oh, I'm not quite sure what I want. Let's throw it to Chris and see what he does with it. So
cool.
I think that's a lot of that.
Who are some of your favorite casting offices in London?
Well, Nina Gold, obviously. I want to work. I mean, Star Wars is over now, but I mean, like, you know, they cast so many wonderful dramas, and interestingly, she also sees me for British parts. So I was up for the Crown. But the funny thing is, like, she called me in about 9 times last year, and I've still not had a job out of her. So I know they like me.
Yeah, cool.
Which is great, good. You know, and they're always like, you know, throwing me something, but it's just not been right yet. So
we'll send her this tape. We'll just send her this tape, and then that's like going to put the pressure on.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're great. I owe a lot of thanks to Hammond Cox, because they I do a lot of commercials. So I do play a lot of dads, and because the German market tends to cast commercials here in London, I tend to play a lot of things for them, and that's kind of, you know, that's bread and butter. That's how I pay my rent.
Totally, that's good.
Yeah, and so I think that kind of gives you an idea of who I am and where I am. I came to Britain to study music originally, so I was a singer originally, and then discovered acting and just fell in love with that and did that, and then weirdly ended up here in London doing exactly what you just said. At some point, because I was doing a lot of Shakespeare plays and, you know, Shakespearean acting, I was wondering whether I should change my accent permanently, and then eventually decided, nah, I like staying who this is. And yeah, so, but where I'm at the moment, where I find myself is like, you know, I get a lot of walk-on parts. I'm doing a lot of independent feature films as slightly bigger parts, but with bigger casting directors like yourselves, you know, I'm getting to these, you know, oh, here's a line that Chris might be right for and something like that. And I'm trying to push my career personally, and this is kind of what I want to talk to you about, towards what happens when you get towards cameo parts, what happens when you get to slightly larger parts. You know, does the casting process change? I mean, I suppose you see the person more often to try to figure out what they're like to work with. You know, what advice can you give to a person who kind of like is okay with the walk-on, but is looking to push towards cameos?
I would say find a venue in which you can do a bigger part, and so that, because how often do you do a bigger part in reality?
Pretty often. So I did 3 feature films last year. I played a very, very large part in a cowboy film that was done by he's an indie filmmaker, but he makes these incredible movies. His name is Mark Price. He's really worth checking out. Great. He makes these movies on, you know, $60,000, $80,000.
Yeah,
but they
look, I think
like
that's kind of what you're doing, and then you have something that you've cataloged and that other people can see as an example of you stepping into a bigger part, and the way that you how much and how appropriate you are or not for a part of, you know, size.
Yeah.
I was going to kind of, like, it sounds like you're doing what I would have advised, which is kind of find areas, venues, platforms that you can do a bigger part in, so that you do the work that's required to be easily conversant in one. So that when the opportunity comes in to audition for a part that Nina Gold has that's bigger, you're like, oh yeah, well, I've done something like this 4 times, so here we go. It sounds like you're doing it to me.
That is so true. It's you know, so often it's not about going into the room and getting the part. It's more about going into the room and meeting the people and having something to talk about. That's what I found. Anyway, that helps me out because it just shows that, you know, you're just working on a certain level.
Yep, that's true. And having something about the acting part that you're going to audition for, something about it being more important than only connecting with the casting director or only looking good or only getting the job that you need to pay the rent with. Like if you're working from an essentially creative, complicated, interesting place, you're more likely to get the job, and you're more likely to be the kind of actor that Nina and I would remember cause he's got to look at that interesting tools in there. That's cool. Wow, I got to remember that.
Yeah, I think as actors, you know, there's a golden rule that kind of nobody talks about, but like the golden rule is don't be boring. You know, you know, don't go whack on a part, but like bring something interesting to a part is definitely good. That's
totally,
really good advice.
Because you're not following our lead. We're asking you to take the lead and create something that's more interesting as what we've imagined or more. Yeah. So if you're willing to do that, we're ready to hand it over to you. But so yeah, in the audition we hand it over to you, and then we take it back, and then we parse it out and decide who's the most right, and blah, 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 blah. But in that moment when it's you, be ready for it so that you can take it and do something that's as good or better than what we thought we'd get.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, I mean, I love the variety of what you're casting, from Zero Dark 30, and you know, when you look at the people who were in that, to Lady and the Tramp. So I just worked. I did a small part in Dumbo. And obviously Disney's over here in Pinewood Studios and pretty much booked out the studios for 10 years, which is great because they're just doing loads and loads of stuff. And I guess that's where a lot of my work comes from, is from, you know, movies coming over.
You can be the American in the part or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and they're filming in Budapest, they're filming in places like that. So my question to you is really COVID-19 related, because, you know, when we were working on Dumbo, we had extras of 300 people in the tent scenes, and they were big parts. How's the casting process changing? Like, because we hear these horror stories of, they're cutting all the scripts down to only the most necessary people. How's that been for you guys? Like, what's happening?
Let's see. I was doing a movie at the start of the pandemic that I got 3 weeks on in the kind of April, May. And then I had to work for 4 or 5 months or whatever. And then now that movie's kind of back on and hoping to come back. It's kind of like what it is for actors. It is the truth. Like, most people aren't working, but a few people are. And yeah, I'm hearing the same thing as you. Like, they're going to cut out. They're working to minimize the number of guest stars per episode to avoid the churn of people coming in and out of the bubble, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it sucks.
It's still a guessing game, huh?
Yeah, it absolutely, it's a guessing game. I don't think nobody knows anything. Everybody's going to try this. Everybody's making moves on the fly, and we'll all just keep trying. And
is there real pain about insurance? That's, you know, trying to get any of this insured?
Oh, yes. My producer of this one movie said, the one I'm doing now is like, there won't be, insurance for COVID is impossible. Okay. So you have to do all the planning and pay for all the things to minimize the actuality of it happening and then deal with it happening. So be ready to take the risk that you have to shut down. So if you don't want to shut down, how are you going to protect your leads? And if you're, and can you afford to protect the leads and, I don't know, 8 more people or 2 more? No. And what do you do when, do you have a contingency plan if number 7 on the call sheet gets sick and has to be out? Do you replace them? Blah, 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 blah. All so many mind-bending scenarios that I'm glad I'm not a producer right now.
It's crazy. I was talking to a producer yesterday in LA who was saying it's not just that, but it's also the tests. As in the States, at least, there's not like that many tests they get easy access to test people.
Yeah, y'all are doing it better than we are. Yeah, y'all are doing it better than we are. You know, in some ways, being an actor in England now is better than being an actor in America, because my assumption is that the kind of general arc of production is more up, whereas we're tentatively going towards up.
Yeah, at the moment here, the bigger TV shows that were kind of already had a season 1 under their belt seem to be back in pre-prod or production. But it's the bigger scale stuff first. I think they're kind of gonna let them start and then be the guinea pigs and sort of filter that down to the smaller shows and the films. I don't know about indie films. Kind of to what Chris was saying before with the insurance and what you were saying, I don't see.
Yeah, I don't think you can get insurance for COVID now.
And I don't see how indie films can reconcile that, just because they're having to budget, you know, eating 20-30% into their normal margins and putting extra time onto the shooting schedule, where an indie feature is pretty.
Yeah, or shooting everything from 6 feet away, or whatever modifications they want to make, or putting people in the house and shooting a movie with just those people, or there are things to do, but it's all fucked up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Zoom films is the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I have, like I said, I have a lot of indie filmmaker friends, and for them, this time is perfect because they know that there's this huge gap in production that is about to come. You know, and with a lot of so a few friends of mine got together and did the film Host. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I've heard of that. I feel like I heard of it.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think it had a write-up in Variety, Rolling Stone. I can't remember what it is.
The Guardian. They were on.
Okay, yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, they did it was like a Zoom, the movie is basically about a couple of people having a seance over Zoom. But it's a small production, handful of people just gunning and running and shooting and stuff like that. And I think there's a real potential for some real good, you know, underground stuff getting the limelight, because the big guys aren't investing in the marketing dollar, which is
that could well be true. I think
there's some really good stuff. Yeah. Right. What else can I ask you? I've never worked in Hollywood. I don't know how that works, quite frankly. I always hasten to add to casting director of your clout that I'm a local hire. It's fine.
Got it.
And but how do you like? I've recently heard that pilot season and stuff like that is not such a big thing anymore, and I don't know whether I should. I don't know whether I should do that thing of coming over and testing the waters. I don't know. It always feels like trying to dip into a very big pond when you're fairly.
Yeah, I would say no now. Don't do it. Don't even try now. Okay. Is my opinion, because I don't know, because you're not going to be in a room with anybody, so there's no reason to do a self-tape from a room in LA as opposed to a room in Leeds. You know.
Yeah.
So I would say no now. Like I've had people that I know come and kind of get a lot of work, and I've had people come from other countries and crickets, and you can't really. It's hard to know why one more than the other exactly. But be prepared for that possibility, because sometimes that happens, which might give you pause for coming.
Yeah.
But the end, I would say, like, pilot season, is more amorphous now. So there's not like there's not a sharp uptick. It's more of a rolling curve in the way that streaming has affected it, which and let's see, there might be, if we're talking network stuff, there's a general arc of casting from like July through March that, guest star or co-star, smaller parts on a recurring TV series that you might be able to snag, but be prepared to sit around and find a way to deal with the downtime that doesn't chew up your creativity or your willingness to shine when the moment's right. Because I find like dealing with the living of your life as an actor and where to marshal your energy and how to be ready to step up is a separate challenge, and in many ways as important a challenge. Mm. So be able to figure out the way to not grind yourself into dust waiting for the next opportunity out here in LA is as important as whether you come or not.
Yeah, I think that's the same.
Because if you're going to chew yourself up and be all neurotic, you probably won't get the job when you do get that one audition.
Someone once said, acting's never a problem when you're doing the job. It's only when you're not.
That's kind of true. Yeah, right.
Speaking of next opportunities, maybe then we should talk about what you're working on next. And I saw that you're working on Samaritan, with Stallone, which he's a personal hero of mine. His story around Rocky, how he got there, how he sold his dog and got him back. If you don't know that story, it's just, it blew my mind. And I saw him in conversation when he came here to London. In fact, I wrote a little review about it. And just the fact that he's a self-made man and wrote every word of the Rocky and Rambos and stuff like that. What's that like to work with? Because that's.
I found him he was on a call once. But other than that, I did talk to him directly. Okay. But no, people like him over there, and it was fun to work on. Yeah, because who wouldn't want to? Like, I don't know. He was a childhood icon of mine too.
Yeah, absolutely. I could probably still be one of my top 10 movies. So you've got anything interesting coming up? What are the next projects?
Let's see. No, not really. Like at the moment, I've only got one thing that's real. I'm doing I don't know if it's real or not. This Netflix movie, which is written by one of the writers of Game of Thrones and the producer of Hurt Locker. So it's got something of a pedigree. It's about 3 kids who form a heavy metal band in high school. And we did 3 weeks of casting in March and April, and then we're kind of finishing 3 weeks of casting, hoping to get a green light so that they can go the end of October. And I think because of the pandemic, I'm trying not to freak out and really just focus on, okay, these 3 weeks that I got hired will get me to there, and then what does that look like, and when do I need to start worrying more than I am? And the pandemic is reminding me, like, you're actually fine. It's freaky, but you have food, so don't worry. So don't put all of that into twisting yourself into a knot that you can't untie, because that's wasted effort.
Yeah.
If you're okay, then you are okay, and you don't have to be attached to the drama of how fucked up things are. You can choose to be, and you should sometimes, but using the drama of how fucked up everything is right now as the engine of your life is as silly as thinking that casting directors have the power. It's a way to get involved in the drama rather than being responsible for your life.
You know, that's so true. I'm not a person who gets caged easily, and at the beginning of lockdown, I really wasn't dealing well with it. And then eventually, I realized that for years I've been wanting a break, and I was just like, hang on, this is my break. And so I took a sabbatical, and I did all those things that fall by the wayside. Like because you were talking about heavy metal, I used to do a lot of music and stuff like that. And I used to have long hair. But I digitized all my old albums, all my old CDs, and I'm listening to music from 20 years ago. And I tell you what, it's been, for my mental health, that's been some of the best things that I've done.
Oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and there's things that people on this Zoom people watching this Zoom can do. There are.
And actually, this Zoom, like I've been doing play reading and poetry group. We just released.
Oh, that's cool.
We just released a small book of poetry. Tell you what, if I may, Turnstile Poetry, just look it up on Instagram. You'll find it.
Okay, we'll do. That's a good reminder to the people watching. Like, do generate yourself.
It's been so good just to take care of yourself, because I think that's more important than anything. If you burn yourself out in this time, then you're not going to be any use as an actor, are you?
No, most likely.
And that can also mean doing nothing. Like just needing that break and just being like, actually, I'm not going to feel bad that I'm not doing stuff when it seems that everybody else seemingly is as well. Like there's that side of the coin too, I think.
I absolutely second that. I must have watched about half of Netflix. It's not a question.
The same. When you get to like 3/4 of Netflix, that's when there's a problem. But half is
actually acceptable. Getting bored of Netflix got me to sit down and write some poetry. It was great.
That's cool. Yeah, getting bored of Netflix made me read a book again. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Great, thanks.
How are we doing for time, Ashley? Are we still good?
Well, I'm turning into the crypt keeper here with lighting, clearly. So I think probably I'm gonna wrap it up. So I'll kind of have a quick chat with Rich at the end here and wrap it up. Anything else from your side, Chris, that you wanted to ask?
No, just Richard. It's been really nice to meet you, and I hope.
Very nice to meet you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, see you later. Bye, dude.
Take it easy, man. Wonderful. Yeah, as I say, I'm realizing more and more that I am turning into like the descent of darkness over here.
Oh yeah, you need one of those ring lights that they have.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna use it earlier because I looked outside and thought it's light, and then I
it's
forgot.
Light. What do we need? But then of course it's
I forgot
7 o'clock.
It's England, and it's actually like almost September, and now you're like, oh, we had no summer, and 2020 is like this bad Christopher Nolan movie where time has no meaning anymore.
Yep, it is.
I think the final thing I want to just touch on before we do wrap up is this ongoing notion that we've come onto in this, which is empowerment for the actor, empowerment for just anybody in whatever walk of life, really. And I think from an actor's perspective, that for me at least comes down to creating your own stuff, being proactive in what you're doing beyond just the one section of the industry that is auditioning and the game. That's
totally
a huge part of it.
Yeah, auditioning is a window into who you are as an artist, a performer, a comedian. It's a window into who you are, and the more things you have done, and the more things you can create, the more interesting you are as a comedian, artist, actor, whatever.
And I think, as you said, the evolution in the past maybe 5 to 10 years of technology and accessibility of that to let you create stuff compared to before.
Yeah, there's no excuse anymore. There's none. There's really none.
I guess the distribution of it in terms of just getting it out there, and having these platforms to create an audience of your own, not just think casting.
Yeah. Right. Like comedians doing stuff on Instagram, and it becomes a thing. It's a thing.
You hear about agents kind of, management companies crawling through YouTube and Instagram and looking for the content that's got an audience already built in.
Because if it has an audience already built in, it's probably better than not. So sometimes, I looked, we were this metal this movie we're working on, like we went to like all the We went to in YouTube rooms and Instagram accounts and tried to see what young kid who might already have an audience, not because they have an audience, but because they got it together to put something on the internet. Like, who's out there that we can find? Who is out there that we can find? So if you put something out there, you're way more likely to get me to find it than if you don't put it out there at all.
And
I don't know what you have to lose.
At least you're doing something creative that satiates the inner.
Yeah, right. Then those are 2 days you spent feeling powerful in the last 2 weeks in a way that years of powerlessness chews you up.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay. I always end these quick sort of 2-3 minute fire questions. I do the James Lipton Inside the Actor Studio questions, if you remember those.
Oh, okay. I don't remember what they are, but yes. But your hair's wrong.
Well,
your hair's wrong.
Okay.
You need hair more like me, that kind of like pasted on.
Okay, let me go get my bronze shaver and just quickly.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll be right to that.
Great.
The first question is what is your favorite word?
Grandiloquent.
Oh, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That's a first. That's the first time.
Good.
There you go.
I don't know. I was trying to think of the word. That was the first word that came into my head.
Let's go with it. What's your least favorite word?
Tedious.
What turns you on in a creative, intellectual, spiritual kind of way?
Seeing something that most people aren't meant to see.
Okay. And on the flip, what turns you off?
Cruelty.
Fifth question is, I guess, optional, but most people answer it. It's what's your favorite swear word?
I don't know. Favorite swear word? I don't know. Fuck is all I got, but like I'm sure there's better.
It's the most used. It's the easiest one.
Yeah, I know, but like, yeah. What's the best answer to that question you've heard?
I had a Dutch producer on say like a Dutch swear word, and it wasn't
fantastic.
And it wasn't like the equivalent of fuck in Dutch. I'm not going to pretend I remember what it was or what it meant, but that was good. I know for me in Spanish, it would be like me cago en la puta or something, which is in Spanish, it just feels, it feels good.
So moist.
And you know, like they swear so liberally that if I translate it to English, it would make an English speaker cringe, and like you can't say that. You can't say that about someone's mother, but
that's right.
In Spain, it's just like saying good morning and good night.
Okay, you know, everybody connects different ways.
Let's just go with fuck. And if you think of
we'll go with fuck. If I think of better, I'll text you.
If you think of a better one, you let me know. The next question is, what's your favorite noise?
Farting.
What's your least favorite noise?
Whining.
What job or profession would you most like to attempt, aside from the ones you've already done?
Politician.
Ooh, interesting. A lot of people.
Yeah, I feel like acting is acting observes how individuals move in circumstances, and politics is the expression of the community's decision about how to behave with each other. And I find the way we connect or don't, or fuck it up, or undermine it, or support it, consistently interesting.
It's all intertwined. It's that kind of psychology, sociology, and all the ologies that we can think of.
All the ologies.
The human condition, ultimately. What job or profession would you never want to attempt under any circumstance?
Huckster for something stupid.
Okay. Final question. A little bit more ethereal, maybe not.
Okay.
It's when it's all said and done, what would you like the story of your life to be? What legacy would you?
Oh yeah, no, I've thought about that. I want to be somebody who did beautiful, beautiful work. That's what I would love. And who left things, you know, who left things a lot better, who left things better than they found them. And that kind of, and I'll get remembered as long as I get remembered before I get forgotten. I don't think I'm going to be remembered forever, but if I get that far, I'll be okay.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. I think there's a quote, I don't know who it's attributed to, but it's the thing of, they say you die twice. The first time is when the first time is when your last breath leaves your body. Mm-hmm. And then the second time is when the last person speaks your name. Yes. Which I find interesting. It's, you know, how are you impacting others ultimately?
Yes.
In whatever capacity. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the time. Thank you for chatting, just sharing your thoughts, insights, and just, you know, great guest. Any kind of final things you want to kind of wrap it up with, final thoughts that you might have, anywhere people can connect with you if that's an option?
Let's see. I have, let's see. I just set up an Instagram account, and I'll text that to you.
Sure.
There's Richard Hicks Casting on Facebook. Mm-hmm. You can join. You can like or whatever. Occasionally, I put like open call notices on that. And,
Great.
Along with the other places I do it. And that's a way to kind of at least connect somehow.
Sure.
So that's what I'd say.
Great. Any final thoughts? Any kind of underlying?
Stay strong. Actors are the best thing in the world. But you know, stay strong and in your power, and you will take us where we need to go.